for still stay with us and welcome to Big Talk here on Global Television. My name is Edikan Michael. Many different unions in the university existing to, of course, mandate the welfares of staffs and, of course, and members. And part of these demands has been the fact that the National Association of Academic Technologies have also queued behind members in the universities to demand some of these privileges. Recently, they held their national convention on elections to elect new members of the national body. And part of this resolution to the fact that some members were elected in return to continue to make the demands between what the federal government has been owing and, of course, their welfare has been prioritized, which has been prioritizing over the agendas of the last administration. I'm being joined to discuss the state of NAT and the agreement and resolution between the federal government and members of NAT by the President, Comrade Honorable Ibeji Nwokoma, who is the National President of NAT, joining us here today on the program. Good to have you, Honorable, join us on the program.
Thank you, Akan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's begin with your fact that, a few months ago, last month precisely, you went on the street for a protest. We're going to quickly right now. Once we return, we'll be speaking with the National President of NAT. Do stay with us. On the time for still stay with us on the program Big Talk here on Global Television. Of course, we are having Comrade Ibeji Nwokoma, who is the President of National Association of Academic Technologies of Universities. And of course, he has recently been re-elected to office as a President. Good to have you join us on the program. Tell us, how are you? How did you find yourself again in the leadership of NAT? Your re-elections.
Well, thank you very much. They say one good time deserves another. And if you do well, people elect you and you do well, definitely they want you to continue with your programs, with your good works and consolidate on them before you hand over. And our constitution allows for 2 tenures, 4 years for each tenure, and then 8 years. And that's the maximum anybody can take. As I was re-elected unanimously, I had 95.5% of the votes. So it was a unanimous victory.
It really speaks well of the support of members to your administration.
Definitely.
Right. Tell us about the recent strike. Would I call it a warning strike to the federal government regarding some of the unsettled salaries? You joined other bodies to queue behind these. Has this yielded result?
Yeah, we went on warning strike on 20th of March,
Yeah.
just last month, to press home our demands. And what is that demand? The demand is that all the university-based unions in Nigeria, sometime in 2022, went on strike, March precisely, 2022, went on strike for some unions on varying times of the strike action. For my union, it was, we were on strike from March to August. For Sanu and Nasu, they were on strike from May to August. For ASU, from February beyond. You know, for ASU, they only came back as a result of a court order. The court ordered them to go back to work, and so that was how they suspended their strike. For NAT, we had a discussion with government in August 2022, and we suspended our strike action. But the then government of Mohamed Buhari insisted that they were going to enforce no work, no pay action. And so our salaries up to date are being withheld. 5.5 months of my member salaries are still being withheld by federal government. And sometime in December, the SA to the president, Galari, announced that federal government, the President Ahmed Tinubu, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had given a waiver for the salaries, withheld salaries, to be paid. A month or two ago, we started hearing rumors, and of course, it now became reality that members of a sister union were paid their 4 months of withheld salaries, leaving behind our members of National Association of Academic Technologies, leaving behind members of SANU and that of NASU. And when we had written to government without getting appropriate responses, then we decided to embark on warning strike to remind government that they need to do the needful so that we don't truncate academic activities in the universities.
I mean, the association have actually been unique regarding to their services to the university. But one may ask, how were you able to break out to form a particular union to stand out from your own? Because you may had, formerly you were called Asuton, and of course, many persons would have said you would have joined other unions in the universities to press your demands. What is the philosophy distinguishing that from other unions?
Yeah, the question of Asuton, Association of Nigerian Laboratory Technologists, on that was formerly Asuton. We realized that the nature of our work is academic. I, for instance, no student will graduate from food science and technology without passing through me, because I do practical work with them. I conduct laboratories. I take them through routine equipment use and maintenance, and I grade the practicals, and I submit my results. So it's purely academic. And there's nobody that will graduate from federal universities of technology without having a result in their practical aspect of their course. If you have 99%, for instance, in theory, and the practical course component of your work is not included, you are going to have F. And so that is how important the technologies that controls that aspect of the coursework. Of course, you also have to realize that academic work in the universities is based on a fulcrum. It's three-pronged. The lecture theater for the lecturers, the laboratory for technologists, and the library for the librarians. So that's the kind of work we do. We don't need to be submerged or subsumed in any other union, no.
Has there been any unfair treatment to your union?
Yeah, of course. It's numerous. For instance, our 2009 agreement says that our members should be paid technologies work ratio That's not implemented. In most of the branches, our responsibility allowances are not implemented. Not just about the welfare of staff. We're also crying for resuscitation of the university, the infrastructure of the university, because our members are suffering so much. I want to give you an illustration. When, for instance, we went to school, the number of students that were admitted in departments are not usually more than 50. At most 60, at most 100. But I'm telling you that these days, the same laboratory that is built for 50 students are being used for over 500 students, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 300. And so you also ask yourself, how many equipments, if for instance you want to use AAS, atomic absorption spectrophotometer, and you want to demonstrate students, make students go through the use of atomic absorption spectrophotometer, you discover that you need to divide the students into streams, and you might end up dividing them into 20, because for effective learning, teaching and learning, there may not be more than 5 of students to use this equipment, and you don't have more than one equipment that is meant for 10, 20 students is now being subjected to for use by 300, 500 students. And so our members are suffering in the sense that we want government to equip the laboratories, we want government to bring state-of-the-art equipment so that these students can learn in a conducive environment. You also get to know that when lecturers are also teaching, students are seated on the windows. Some stay outside. These are the things people are suffering. And our members are most hit because after the lectures, they come back to be taught in the laboratories. Those theories that are taught in the classroom, you come to the laboratory to reduce it to its practicability. And if the laboratories are not good enough, there are no good equipment, the space that is available in the laboratories are not there. And so those are the things that make it very difficult for our members to.
It's not just about your salaries that you're.
No, it's not about transfer salaries. No, it's not.
All right. Talk about the Earn Allowance Agreement in 2018. I mean.
2009.
Between 2009. I mean, there have also the recent one at 2018 at University of I think Ibadan, where some union raised that concern. What has been, the results so far from that aspect, and what do you mean by asking of earned allowance?
Just as I just told you now, earned allowances are those allowances that are paid to you as a result of what you do. They are, if for instance, I'm supposed to take 50 students on their practical course if they are admitted, and I end up taking 1,000 students. I'm saying the extra load, the extra work being done by technologists, that is what we are asking for. That is the earned allowance. It is earned.
Members have such
of course, they do, because they also are supposed to take a certain number of students. There's by NUC standard, there's a particular number of lecturer per some number of students. There's also a particular number of technologists per some number of students. So when you exceed that limit, you discover that you should be paid for the excess work that you are doing. That's the end allowance we're talking about. And I want to tell you that in 2023 financial year, that government told us in an MOU we signed with them in 2022 when we suspended that strike. They told us that this thing has been captured in 2023 budget, 50 billion naira that was earmarked for end allowance. And I want to tell you that till date, that money has not been released, even though it was budgeted, even though it was part of our MOU that we signed for us to suspend that agreement. Till date, the end allowance is not paid.
Part of your demands from federal
government. Of course.
Talk about career nomination. You are praising, some members of your union are praising for a career nomination. How is it achievable?
Well, in 2017, our members signed an MOU with government on the release of circular for countries 14 and 15. In 2020, we signed another MOU with government because for that of 2027, nothing had been done. 2021, we also signed another MOU. 2022, even up to the time in 2021, we suspended that strike action. Till date, even when we had gone a long way with Federal Ministry of Education, they said that it was not within their purview, that it is which place now? I think it's head of service, sorry, head of service that has the responsibility of releasing circulars for career elongation. And we've been on that for years, for almost 17 years now. And that circular is yet to be released so that our members can get to the peak of their career. Till date, till now that I'm talking to you, that circular is yet to be released.
So what has been the level of your engagement with government? I mean, level of negotiation. Sometimes we find that some delegations of ASU and all of that get to meet. Has there been a table where you sit and of course also led your demands and of course having a robust engagement with government, with the past government or the current government? Your demands?
Of course. You know that there's this 2009 agreement. And the 2009 agreement was supposed to be renegotiated after 3 years. But after 3 years, even after 10 years, that agreement was not renegotiated until agitations by the unions, by my union, for instance. And then when the agitation started, they now constituted renegotiating committee, the renegotiation committee. And the renegotiation committee sat. After some time, it was stopped. And then up to 2021, that is the last time the renegotiation exercise took place. Till now, that exercise has been abandoned by government. And we're saying, why don't we conclude the renegotiation of the agreement? Because these are agreements that the federal government freely entered into with the unions. And the agreement in itself says that it has to be reviewed every 3 years. Till date, check between 2009 till now, that agreement is not yet reviewed. The only government only picks some aspects from time to time and improve on it. But the totality of that agreement has to be renegotiated. And that is not renegotiated.
Let's get back to universities. Issues of wrong perception. Have you been, your members been facing issues of wrong perception? Probably that has been people finding it hard to understand what you do, the uniqueness of, you've also amplified some of those things that you do. But what are those wrong perceptions that people have about your union in practice?
Well, maybe the only group that can say that there's a wrong perception of what we do are people maybe who are in the arts. There's no way you pass through universities in the engineering, in sciences, in environmental sciences, or even in medicine, or even in mass comm. Because even in mass comm, they have music laboratory. So if you pass through the universities and you studied any of these courses, definitely you will know the importance of technologists. There's no way you can pass through because you must have one time or the other used one equipment or the other. At one time or the other, you have engaged yourself in workshop practice, in practicals, in studio. It's not humanly possible for anybody to say that it doesn't know.
Is there a description of what? Because prior to this time, some persons were hired, maybe people who just finished secondary school were hired to be in the laboratory and all of that. Has there been a categorization of your members to this? Because as you said, you are being distinguished by all standards. But how about those other tendencies that were existing prior to your formation?
Yes, life is dynamic. There's no, ours evolved. I tell you for free that as at 1992, up to 2000, that librarians were not members of ASU, for instance. They were not members of academic staff, the university librarians. It evolved. The people, when they got to know that, no, even in the library, that library is part of academic work. Initially, there were no technologists. People were not qualified. They didn't have qualified personnel. Because technologists, I tell you, are not appendages of anybody. Technologists is not an academic staff. Technologists are core professionals in the university system. And so it evolved. It got to a point where there's need for manpower in the laboratories, in the workshops, in the studios. And so they employed people to assist in carrying out some of these maybe wash laboratory tools, wash glasswares, be part of the exercise in workshops. But with time, it became obvious that those assistants cannot do the core job of a technologist. And so it evolved, and then technologists, people were now qualified. People now got qualified. It was then that this course, Science Laboratory Technology, was now introduced in polytechnics, in universities, so that they can produce, so that they can graduate required manpower that will function and work in laboratories, that will function as technologists, that will function as scientists in the laboratories, in the workshops, because you need professionals to do that job. And of course, there is this Nigerian Institute of Science and Laboratory Technology in Ibadan that certifies laboratory scientists, science laboratory technologists. And our members are qualified and are chartered and are certified by this organization that is by law the organization that certifies science laboratory technology. So that's how our profession evolved. And then you're a technologist, you are now a member of National Association of Academic Technologists. That's how it evolved.
Many thanks, Honorable. We'll go on a quick break right now. And once we return, we'll look at what his government will do differently in engaging the government of the day for some of the welfareisms at demand of members of NAT. And what are the steps he, of course, he intends to take as he has, of course, been re-elected to be the president of NAT. Looking at the affairs of the academic technologies in the Nigerian universities. We'll go on a quick break right now. Once we're right back, we'll be speaking on that. Just stay with us. And if you're just joining us, of course, you're welcome to Big Talk, where we are x-raying the state of Nigerian universities at the demand of NAT, which is the National Institute of Academic Technologies, and the federal government, some of the resolutions. And now we want to take a look at the tenure under the leadership of Comrade Ibeji Wokoma, who have, of course, been re-elected to continue. 4 years gone. I mean, now the new 4 years started. What are the expectations? What do you feel that you do on this mandate given to you by the members of the NAT?
Well, there's no future without past. In the past 4 years, well, I'm not going to sing my praise, but all over the country, my members know that we've done our best. By the time we come on board, IPPS was introduced. In a number of universities, some of our members were not getting the occupational hazard allowance, which is part and parcel of our salaries because of the nature of what we do. Why we are unique, why it is peculiar to us is because technologies stay in the laboratories. They die slowly. They inhale chemicals on daily basis. Of course, it just had the unfortunate incident in OAU, Ile-Ife, Obafemi University, Ile-Ife, that our members was killed by a lion. One of our members was killed while trying to feed a lion. He's a technologist. That is the nature of what we do. And so by the time when I came on board, I was able to get a circular for payment of occupational hazard allowance from National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission. And that now is history. All of our members all over the country are now enjoying 30,000 naira monthly for occupational hazard allowance, responsibility allowances, and we're also beginning to get sponsorship from TED Fund for direct overseas training. A lot that we've been able to do. gotten a website for our members, and so many other things. And in the next 4 years, I want to tell you for free that by God's grace, the welfare of our members will be paramount. We're going to consolidate on training and retraining of technologies because that is paramount. You cannot be in a digital world and have analog technologies. That is the greatest injustice you'll be doing to the system. Technology change per time, per minute, per hour. And if I schooled in the 1990s, and as at that time the equipment we used is not as scientific as it is now, technologically has evolved, and you don't send me on training, and you bring new equipment, you know that school, that equipment will be in trouble, because by fidgeting it, that equipment that runs into millions, billions of naira, I will mess it up. And so our members need to be trained and retrained on a regular basis. We're going to work on that to ensure not just that it becomes the responsibility of the universities, but that NUC Third Fund will be part and parcel of ensuring the training of academic technologies, because they are very, very important in the system. That's one. And then the welfare of our members. We'll ensure and press on government to ensure that 2009 agreement is fully renegotiated. Part of the gains of 2009 agreement will be categorizing our members as academic because of the nature of academic work we do, and quite a lot of other things. We also have a secretariat that is uncompleted, and we want to ensure that that secretariat is completed before I leave office, and so many other things.
Let's talk on the funding of the sector. I mean, I understand quite a lot of enormous issues there. But sometimes government comes out to say that the university is autonomous. So, I mean, they can't have the right to be able to fix in what they want. But then we understand that government lacks the capacity to drive all of these. Be able to say, what other means can we be able to fund the sector? Are we still living it in the hands of government alone?
No, government alone cannot fund education. But the problem with government is that, for instance, government introduced IPPIS. For instance, government introduced a payment platform where they said that universities should pay every part of everything they get. And remember that universities do not have IGR, internally generated revenue, because everything that is charged in the university is a service charge. For instance, if the student pays accommodation fee, you have to maintain the hostel. You have to give them toilet roll. There are so many other things. It's charges. If the student pays for health services, that student has to go to clinic. You have to provide drugs. If the student pays for laboratory services or library, the student has to use those facilities. So most of those monies that people are saying is IGR, it's not IGR, they are service charges. The government now said that the university should pool those monies into single treasury account. That means everything you generate, you put into single treasury account, and government is expected to take 40% of that money. And then what is left for the university? And so that is one of the greatest problems of funding of universities. And then again, we have also suggested to government several other ways of increasing funding in the universities. Several ways. It could be through tax, it could be through so many other ways. It could be collaborative, making sure that research efforts in the universities are fully utilized. The universities need to be encouraged by government when it comes to research and utilization of research results. That has not been happening. In advanced world, it is the universities that drive the economy. It's universities that drive technology. And of course, countries that do not have oil depend on technology. And it is these things are from the universities. So if government does not assist the universities in the area of research and utilization of research, it becomes a problem. The university will just be there. So these are areas that would generate a lot of money if they are accelerated, if government provides the enabling environment. Thank you.
What are your fears that if all of these things are not well paid attention to, we might be able to face in the university?
We'll continue where we are. Nigerian universities are not how many universities in Nigeria are ranked among the first 1,000 in the world? How many? Even in Africa, how many of our universities are ranked among the first 100, among the first 1,000? That will tell you the sorry state of the university. And so if these things are not done, if nothing is done to help assist universities get the research work that is going on in universities, get it rolled out, get it to up to industrial level, and then what are we talking about? And of course, you know, because of poor funding, you know, the sorry state of the universities, how many of the fresh graduates today can boldly write an application? How many of these graduates today can walk into a company and function effectively? That's how bad it is. And of course, I am also of the opinion that there's this theory that the people who are building, as of today, there are over 440 something private universities. The people who are building these private universities are making sure that there will be no peace in public universities. Take a look at what is happening in public primary and secondary schools. They are bringing it to public universities to ensure that it does not work, and then also ensure that public private universities are functioning, are flourishing. And so that when public universities are not working, of course, it is the private universities.
Where would you have the economy to afford the private schools?
Yeah, people are not necessarily going to private schools because they can afford to pay it. They are going there because they don't have alternative, because they are afraid that if a student is admitted for a course that will take him 4 years or 5 years, that the student will end up staying 7 years or 8 years. And so they manage to send their children to private universities. And I'm also getting the fears that private universities are reducing their fees to attract more students from the public universities.
All right, as we begin to round up the program, I mean, it has been an interesting conversation. Are we able to convene other members to your elections? Because quite high cost of fuel scarcity and all of that, did it affect your members?
Yeah, it requires planning. Our National Delegates Conference is a quadrennial conference. It is 4 years. It takes place every 4 years. And so by the time we get to the mid of the first 2 years, we begin to sensitize our members that there is need for our branches to begin to save towards the NDC, because each branch is expected to sponsor 6 delegates to Abuja for
all the 6. I mean, all the branches had 6 delegates here in Abuja.
Yeah, all over the country, all the universities and polytechnics, and colleges of education. Yeah.
Good days for Nat, and of course, we wish that your administration will be able to have press more demand on the government so that you can actually get what you want for your members and to strengthen the state of academic technologies in the universities, in the Nigerian universities, which is the core of the academic practicals in the university system. It is, of course, wishes that the federal government will continue to have a working good relationship and engagement with the unions of universities so as to restore peace and stability in the universities. And that is a much we'll be taking on the program on this edition of Big Talk. We'll see you tomorrow where we'll take another story topic for another conversation. My name is Deacon Michael. Many thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.